As you may or may not know, Alex and I are really big wrestling fans. If you could see my desk right now, you could see I also collect Funko Pops, and I've got The Undertaker, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch sitting on my desk right now. But anyway, I've been a fan since my dad first started taking me to Mid-Atlantic in NWA matches at the old Greenville Memorial Auditorium when I was around 6 years old. Now, you might be wondering how wrestling has anything to do with this type of podcast, right? Well, sit back, because we have ghost stories to tell involving the wrestling world.
Mystery, murder, and heroes, and
Back in 1999, wrestler Owen Hart made an attempt at a very daring, very dangerous entrance to the ring. That period of time was known as the Attitude Era. Everything was extra during that time. On May 23rd, 1999, Owen Hart, appearing as the Blue Blazer was like one of his alter egos or something like that, right, Alex?
Yes, it was one of his many gimmicks.
Okay. But he was appearing as the Blue Blazer that night, and he had a championship match with the Godfather at the Over the Edge pay-per-view.
Was it for the Intercontinental Championship, right?
Yeah, it was, and I find it funny that you can't remember to pick up your dirty laundry 5 minutes after I tell you to, but you know something from something that was 4 years before you were born.
Listen here.
Yeah.
I have the mind of a tree.
You retain what you want to retain.
I retain the wrestling knowledge that's important to me, not the lingerie.
Now, what was supposed to happen was Owen was to lower himself from the rafters, but something went wrong. When the match was ready to start, suddenly Jim Ross said, "We've got big problems out here." And then they cut to a promo that showed Owen as the Blue Blazer. And when the promo ended, the cameras was only showing the audience. And then JR said that Owen had fallen from the rafters onto the wrestling mat. The harness that he was wearing snapped, and he fell 78 feet. He was rushed to the hospital, but died from internal bleeding. Owen Hart was dead at the age of 34. Since Owen's passing, there have been several reports of Owen's ghost being seen at the Kemper Arena in Kansas City, Missouri, where he met his demise. Several employees at the arena have reported that they saw Owen's ghost in the rafters. He was wearing the Blue Blazer costume that he was wearing the night that he died, and others have reported seeing flickering lights and other power sources go off and on. Some even claim to hear him up in the rafters like he's checking the cables. I think that would be just kind of freaky if you just hear the cables clicking or whatever noise they're making, and nobody's supposed to be up there.
Yeah.
Others have seen him pacing around down on the floor where the ring was, where he died. Now, to me, it seems like he's got unfinished business here in the earthly realm before he moves on to the spirit world. Well, I guess he is in the spirit world, but before he just you know what I mean. Now, maybe he's still waiting for his match to start.
He wants to become Intercontinental Champion still.
Yeah, I think so. And I just wonder what... Okay, so he was supposed to fight the Godfather that night. And I just wonder what his thoughts were. I mean, you're waiting for your match to start, and the person you're about to wrestle...
you're defending your title, and then, before you come out, he comes out on the top of the arena, and then you see that happen. What's going through your mind, you know?
I know, exactly, and I just thought, to be his opponent, I mean, I'm sure it devastated everybody in the locker room, and I just feel like, especially him, knowing that was his match, and that happened, I mean, and can you imagine sitting in the audience and seeing that happen?
I don't know what to say if that would happen if I saw that.
I mean, I've been at concerts and different things where it was hot and people passed out, and that's the extent of it. I mean, but can you imagine waiting for your favorite wrestler to come out and, I mean, something goes wrong and he just dies right in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, like right there in the ring, you know. I think during that time period, yeah, that was 1999, so your sister was like 6. I kind of had gotten out of wrestling for a little while, just busy taking care of her and working and everything else, so I just wasn't into it, but I can remember, you know, hearing about it on the news or whatever. So, Roddy Piper, he was a favorite of mine from my childhood, and I saw him wrestle several times when I was a kid, and I always was just in awe of him because he had a really strong personality and ring appearance, like ring presence and everything. He passed away almost 6 years ago now, but this ghost story isn't about him. It's about a ghost he claims to have seen. Now, some time ago, Roddy appeared on the Biography Channel's show called The Haunting of, and he talked about seeing the ghost of Adrian Adonis. I'm making up wrestlers now, but it was Adrian Adonis, and he died in a car accident on July the 4th, 1988. Now, I'm not sure, I meant to have went and looked, but I don't know when this was filmed, so I'm not real clear on timelines on this or anything. But he talked about seeing Adrian Adonis, and he and Piper and Adonis had a match at WrestleMania 3. And I mean, God, look how long ago WrestleMania 3 was, because we're up to
37.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it 37 this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, just in a couple of weeks we'll have WrestleMania 37. So that was back at WrestleMania 3. Now, they were pretty good friends from what I've read, because at the time that show was aired, he mentioned that Adrian had encouraged him to buy the house that Piper and his family currently live in. Or I'm not sure that they, you know, any of them still live in that house, because like I said, this was current when that show aired. Now, Roddy said that his son soon started saying he was seeing shadows and hearing noises. His daughter would scream and say she saw a man in her room. And I'm sure, I don't really know how old she was at the time, but I'm sure that probably freaked her out.
Yeah, probably did.
Once Roddy came home from a trip, and his son came running out saying that a man was in the house. Well, Roddy goes storming in, you know, thinking he's got to protect his family from some ghost in the house. And what he saw was the ghost of Adrian Adonis. Now, get this. The ghost said, "Hey, Roddy."
He was like,
"Hey, Roddy."
He was like, "Hey, I miss you. Where you been? Where'd you go?"
And after he said, "Hey, Roddy," he just disappeared. Now, I don't know if they ever saw him again after that. Maybe after they acknowledged who he was, maybe he just moved on. I don't know. But Piper had nothing but good stuff to say about Adrian Adonis, and he believed that he was actually looking out for his family. Now, I should probably add also that on that show, the Biography Channel show that I mentioned, he talked with a psychic medium, and she said that she was picking up a name that they later believed, you know, or he said was probably Owen Hart, because she said she wasn't sure who it was, but his name started with an O, and so they figured it was Owen. And she was also getting messages from Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig.
He wants to be perfect when he's a ghost too, so like I expect that.
I'm sure he like reached ultimate perfection once he was a spirit. But I think it was pretty cool that Adrian was like looking out for his family. But God, I know it had to scare those kids to death. I mean, you know, we've talked about it before, the little ghost that hides my stuff around the house.
Yeah. She's mean.
She's not exactly mean. She's just very, she likes practical jokes, I guess, that type of thing, and hiding your stuff.
She's a prankster.
She is a prankster. That's the word I was looking for. Luckily, she's never did anything mean, you know.
Yeah.
She's never scared me, but I mean, I can imagine if I walked into my room and saw what looked like a man, it would really startle me, and probably I'd run out. But now this next one is about one of your favorites, and you want to guess who it is?
No, okay, I'm not gonna guess her.
All right, so your favorite, or one of your favorites from the past, has been seen haunting a wrestling promotion in rural Florida. And I'm talking about...
yeah.
Yes, we were talking about the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Now, I got a funny little story about Alex and Macho Man. Now, he's never met him, no. But every year, the first day of school from... We started in middle school, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Like 8th grade or something.
Around middle school, maybe early high. I know at least by 9th grade anyway. Every single picture of Alex's first day of school is in his Macho Man t-shirt.
I have like 2 of these. I have a pink one, a purple one, and then a blue one.
Yeah. So we just, after, I think the first 2 times it happened, it was an accident. And when I went back and looked and saw that you had wore the same thing, like...
Become a tradition.
Yeah, so then we was like, okay, we got to do it every year now. Well, he's a senior now, so we've already taken his last Macho Man shirt. But anyway, so... There's a photo, and he's, like, in the ring, and he's wearing his trademark cowboy hat, and, the jacket that he had with all the tassel things hanging off of it. It took me some digging, and I finally found that photo, and I'm going to post it on Facebook, on the Facebook page, and the photo, the credit for it goes to Kenny Eichenberg. I think I said his name right, Eichenberg, because he's the one that took the picture. Now, as you may remember, Randy died in 2012. The information, is that right, Alex? 2012.
When he passed?
Yeah.
I think it was 2011.
Okay, maybe my source was wrong, but anyway, he died from a heart attack in Florida. Now apparently his ghost started appearing after it was announced that he would posthumously be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, and that's a one way to make a comeback, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't do it. You can do it better than me.
Oh, yeah.
I can do it.
See, I always add the brother to it, so I like mix up Hulk Hogan and
yeah,
and
I did
Randy
too.
Savage. Yeah, your mom's a dork. Now, Eddie Guerrero, this one is like one that like really gets to me, because if I had to make a list of favorites, he would be up there like in the top 3. His ring presence and his personality, that in and out of the ring, won my heart when I was young. Like, the first time I saw him wrestle, I was just like, this dude is cool, you know? So imagine how devastated I was when I learned of his death, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was working at a call center, and one of my friends came into work. She was a big wrestling fan too, and she told me, she was like, I need to tell you something when you get off that call. So when I got off that call, I was like, what's up? And she's like, I got to tell you something that you're not going to want to hear. She's like, but I don't want you to like get on the internet later and find it. So, but anyway, she was like, Eddie died today. And I'm like, Eddie Guerrero? And she's like, yeah. She said he died like earlier that day that she was telling me. It was a heart attack, and it was in the Minnesota hotel room. And one thing that always came to mind was that he was probably alone. And I think it would be so scary in your final moments to just be by yourself like that, knowing you're fixing to die. You can't tell your wife or your kids, I'm going, or I love you, or anything like that. So that was my first thought, was he was by himself. And I want to say Chavo found him. I think I remember seeing that somewhere.
Yeah, it was Chavo finding him.
That had to be devastating because they were cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it honestly, it felt like the earth had disappeared from underneath me. And no, I didn't know him personally, or he wasn't a family member. But when you've watched somebody for so long on television, and you've seen them in the ring in front of you, like you're sitting there watching them, and then all of a sudden they're gone, it's devastating. I mean, I've had several wrestlers' deaths that just truly hurt my heart really bad, you know. And it's like earlier today, we were watching that video of wrestlers who had passed in that time period that they had did the video of, and Eddie was one of the pictures that popped up, and tears just started flowing. But he was just always like one of my favorites. And I was thinking about poor Vicky and their kids. I mean, his kids were pretty young when he died, so they've had to grow up without him. Yeah. Vicky, you know, I mean, she's made a name for herself in the wrestling world now, but I know she misses him though. I mean, but yeah, my mind was just rushing. Like, what the heck happened, you know. But I can honestly say that if any ghost of a wrestler came to visit me, I'd want it to be him. Like, and I would want to hear Viva La Raza, and, you know, I would want him to do that little shoulder shake he would do when he was... Oh, and remember when he used to come out to the ring in that Impala, that old Impala? Yeah. That's because... I don't know that's always been one of my favorite classic cars. I'm not sure if he made it my favorite, but you know what I should do is that tattoo of that Impala. I should have had Eddie put into that somehow.
Cool,
that would have been cool, yeah.
Back on track.
Now, honestly, I couldn't find any like ghost sightings, like anything on that. As far as like they see his ghost or feel his presence or anything, but there was a picture that popped up, and it was taken by a lady named Jamie I think it was a lady anyway, Jamie Keller, and she was they were at a wrestling event. Now the picture shows John Morrison in the ring with an orb in front of him. Now in the orb you can see the profile of Eddie's face, like you can see in like his eyes, nose, mouth. And I'm going to post that picture, too, on the Facebook page, so y'all can check it out if you want. Now, I can see the eyes and nose and mouth. And y'all know I'm not a skeptic, because I'm big into ghosts and spirits and that type of thing. But I'm not seeing Eddie in it. Like, yeah. Now I know you said you could. But it might be just because I got old eyes.
Might be because you have old eyes, but I can see Eddie in that photo, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But I mean, if everybody else can see it, I'm just going to go with, yeah, that's what they're seeing. Now, everybody remembers Ultimate Warrior.
Yes.
He was electric. I mean, I don't even know how to describe him, because
this man was holding his fist up in the air, running down to the ring, and still have a lot of energy when he came into the ring and wrestled.
Oh my God. I mean, like, and he was like a bolt of lightning just streaking by going to the ring. Yeah. I can remember seeing him just like, I don't think I ever saw him in person at a match, but I can remember on TV, he just streaking by, like, and there he goes, you know?
Yeah.
Now, if you know anything about the Ultimate Warrior, you know that he kind of messed around with the paranormal. Like, there was, like, storylines and stuff. And I think that because he was kind of into that paranormal thing, I think that's what intrigued me about him too. Now at one time, one of the storylines was that Warrior had a curse put on him by the voodoo priest Papa Shango, and he started. Well, no, they said it was green blood, but it looked like green vomit to me. It was gross, whatever it was, but it was green. And there was a lot on WWE that showed Warrior battling demons. But it was after his death that all the really spooky stuff started happening.
Oh, no.
His widow, Dana, and she's like such a nice, awesome woman. Like, she has carried his legacy on. Like, you see her like on different wrestling events, like the big ones like Mania and stuff, but I really have a lot of respect for her. But anyway, she hosts a podcast called Total Warriors, and you should check it out if you haven't. But anyway, she spoke on one of her episodes about her belief that the Ultimate Warrior has returned from the dead and serves as her personal protector. Now, the house that they bought in New Mexico was haunted, and they didn't know it at the time. But then later, when weird stuff started happening, they found out that it was built on tribal land. Underneath the house, Miss Warrior says that the crawl space underneath the house serves as a portal to the other side, and that spirits come and go as they please. At the time that they purchased the house, like I said, they didn't know that any of the history, but she can remember the day that they signed the papers, I believe it was, just crying uncontrollably, and she didn't know why. But now that since everything is happening in that house, she feels like it was a feeling that she was just getting from the spirits that was there. Now, Ultimate Warrior, sadly, he passed away just one day after his final appearance on Raw. Only 3 days after being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
In his last words on Monday Night Raw, he said, "And the spirit of the Ultimate Warrior will run forever." And then the next day, yeah.
See, that's sad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was his final words, saying that the spirit would run forever, and then he passes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, only 3 days after being inducted to the Hall of Fame. So, but his widow says that he wasn't ready to die because he was so adamant about protecting her and the daughters. Now, she said that when he died, she literally felt his spirit leave his body and travel through hers. Now, when his spirit moved behind her, she told him, get back in here now. And, like, she was telling him, get back in his body, because she wasn't ready to let him go either. And, I mean, I guess it was his time. But Ultimate Warrior had given his daughter, Indiana, the nickname of Ladybug. And after his death, when things would get scary, Dana says that he would send ladybugs. When they finally moved out of that house, a ladybug landed on their windshield. I believe that was Warrior's way of saying, it's going to be okay now, you know. Even their dog Daisy had sensed his presence in the house in his spiritual form, because shortly after he died, Daisy howled and paced like around their property, the house, the land around it, looking for him. And Dana said that it was like the dog could feel his presence, but couldn't figure out why he wasn't physically there. Like, the dog felt Warrior there, but she couldn't see him, and she just didn't understand that. And Dana said that dog howled and barked and paced for like 24 hours looking for him. That's so sad. And I remember reading, when I was reading about this too, that she said that the dog later, like years later after Warrior died, that the dog had just kind of got her health had went downhill, and that they made the decision to have the dog put to sleep. And she said that when she was talking to the dog, she was like, look, she said, you don't feel good, and it's your time to go, because I think they had another dog that had passed away. And she told her, she said, you can go be with the boys now. So I feel like Daisy ran across the Rainbow Bridge, and who was at the end of the Rainbow Bridge? Warrior and the other dog. You know, I can't remember what that other dog's name was. But one night before the family moved out of that house, there was a particularly disturbing incident, and she said she could only describe it as furniture being thrown around and crashing. And then all of a sudden, she felt that she shouldn't move or speak. And she believed that the Ultimate Warrior was there protecting them. And she also said when she woke up the next morning, she expected to see, like, furniture, like, thrown all over the house, like, everything. But she said there was nothing out of place.
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior, he was cool. I mean, he was a pretty unique character. Like, there's a lot of cookie cutter wrestlers, but then there's, like, people like him that stand out. Like, he's just so different. Like, Undertaker does his own thing. Like, I hated to see him retire, but I mean, he ain't getting no younger. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about was one of the biggest wrestlers of his time, and it was Andre the Giant.
Literally, he's like the biggest one.
Literally. I never got the chance to see him wrestle in person, because when I was a little kid, the WWE or WWF, I think it was known back then, I didn't visit this area very often. And being such a ginormous man in stature and in personality, you would think that his spirit would be as big. But the only thing that I could find online about him was a spirit box session, and it was pretty neat. It only lasted 3 minutes, but it was very, very interesting. A guy by the name of Charlie Chittenden, and I believe the name of his YouTube channel is Charlie Chittenden Paranormal. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, he was the one that was conducting the session, and he asked Andre a few questions, and it didn't take long for Andre to, like, make his presence known. When he asked, besides himself, who was his favorite wrestler, he responded with, I beat them. And I can just imagine him saying something like that. And Charlie asked him if he had any other wrestler, or if he had seen any other wrestlers who had passed, and he replied with Hart through again. which I believe is a reference to Owen Hart. Charlie mentioned that Andre the Giant had passed in 1993 from congestive heart failure, to which Andre responded with, "My heart went."
Dang.
I believe he probably had the biggest heart of all wrestlers, though. He just comes across as like a kind,
gentle giant.
Yeah, like probably loved kids and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and I always loved him in The Princess Bride. Like he was funny in that movie. Like he was just hilarious. But I really think that he was a gentle giant and had a good heart.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say that's all we've got for today. I do want to dedicate this episode to all the wrestlers that have went on. They'll always be alive in our hearts.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening in. You know, as always, check out our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/3M podcast. And if you have episode ideas, questions, comments, anything, you can email us at 3mpodcast3@gmail.com.